Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and it will be available for you to watch later at your convenience. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch, so please share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries in Nebraska. So similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and consulting and databases and grants to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies. Really, our only criteria here is that it's something to do with libraries. We sometimes have Nebraska Library Commission staff that do presentations for us on resources and programs and things we're doing here through the Commission, but we also bring in guest speakers. And that is what we have today. Joining us from the Nebraska Department of Education is Jesse and Zainab, and they are going to talk about, and I'll let you both do a fuller intro of yourselves, and they're going to talk about this a new statewide literacy initiative that we have here in Nebraska, which I think is going to be a great resource for all types of libraries. So I will hand it over to you, Jesse and Zainab, to introduce yourself and tell us all about what you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Krista. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. First, I would like to thank the Nebraska Library Commission for this invitation and to let us spend the next hour with you to share how Nebraska is approaching family literacy as part of the coordinated statewide effort. My name is Zainab Rida, and I'm the Student Service Officer and Administrator at the Nebraska Department of Education. In the Office of Coordinated Student Support Services. It's a very long title. I am joined today by my colleague, Jessie Coffey. She's the Director of the Whole Child and Family and Community Engagement. And she's also leading the family literacy, the community part. So we both will be presenting and throughout this next hour. Jesse and I will be spending the next hour walking through Nebraska family literacy work, including the vision, guiding the effort, the strategy and tools supporting family as partner in learning, and how this work is being implemented across the state. So we will also highlight some resources may be specifically relevant to the libraries and community partners, and share a way to stay connected to this work. So we'll leave sometimes at the end for questions and discussion. Next slide, please. Before we get started and talking about the literacy project, I would like to introduce our Office of Coordinated Student Support Services. Our office focuses on providing student services that address the non-academic needs of students, because as you know, the learning doesn't happen in isolation. Our work includes nutrition services, school safety, mental health, health services, family and community engagement, 21st century after school program, employee wellness, and other support that helps students thrive. Our goal for this office really, we want to remove barriers to learning and create environment where students they feel safe, healthy, supported, and ready to learn. Next slide, please. So I put together an outline what you're expecting from the presentation. So I briefly walk you through what we will be covering. We will begin with the requirement from the legislation, which provide the foundation for Nebraska literacy work, and outline why family literacy and engagement are critical component of our statewide approach. From there, we will also provide an overview of Nebraska literacy vision, goals, and tenets, and which include in how these elements work together to support early literacy and long-term student success. Next, we will be sharing our highlight from, you're going to hear we refer to the CLSD project, which is Comprehensive Literacy State Development, which helps support evidence-based literacy practice across the state. We will then focus on more specifically on Nebraska Literacy Project Tenet 5, which center on family literacy and family engagement. And to support this work, we will discuss in detail about Tenet 5 and the establishment of Nebraska Family Literacy Advisory Committee, including the role in guiding the implementation and ensuring diverse perspectives are represented. And we will walk through two phases, phase 1, which focus on planning, listening, and resources development, and phase 2, which emphasizes on implementation, scaling, and continuous improvement. And Jesse will be introducing several tools and resources developed to support this work, including Family Literacy Resources Hub, the Family Literacy Guide, and accompany promotional materials designed for you and designed for community partners to use. We will also highlight Nebraska Statewide Family Engagement Center, which is Jessie is involved heavily and working with our partners. And also Jessie she is part of and she directed a program, Harvest of the Month, and she's going to talk about how to how literacy can connect across a system through the Harvest of the Month care and the educational lesson with embedded literacy element in that. So let's get started. So move to the next slide, please. So I summarize all these requirements from the legislation. Basically, the first one, the legislation requires the Department of Education to develop a professional learning system. And so they basically task NDE to be responsible for ensuring sustained and high quality professional learning grounded in evidence-based reading instruction for educator serving children from early childhood through 3rd grade. The second requirement, as you see, it's required the department to implement evidence-based reading instruction, and basically in an approved, accredited school and early childhood programs, to make sure that the teacher are not only aware of professional learning opportunity, but also they are adequately trained to effectively teach reading. The third requirement, legislation basically require from NDE to establish regional literacy coaches. They working through ESUs, or we call them educational service units, to provide support and ongoing coaches to K through 3 to 3rd grade teachers. The fourth one is emphasize on family literacy, require to collaborate with local family literacy center and strengthen home and family literacy program, which is the focus of this presentation. Finally, the legislation require also to measure effectiveness. This include collecting appropriate data to evaluate both the professional learning system and the implementation of evidence-based reading. So as you will see in the next section, these legislative requirements were translated into 5 tenets, and you're going to hear us talk about tenets. So we're currently in the second year of implementing CLSD grant. So let's talk about those. I summarize this slide is basically, it shows about what is the Nebraska vision, what are the goals, and talk about a little bit about those 5 tenets. So the vision is to foster a culture of proficient and lifelong reader. Literacy is not, as you know, is not only about early grades or test scores. We want to make sure that it's about equipping students with the skills they need to learn, earn, and live throughout their life. As you see, the center of this vision, there is a strong focus on evidence-based reading instruction. So we know from the research that instruction grounded in science of reading give the students the best chance to develop strong foundational literacy skills. And as you see that our goal, so there are the vision also, it's divided in 2 sub goals that we call them, is to increase the 3rd grade proficiency on NCompass, English Language Art Assessment, to 70% by 2030. The data that we have 2023-2024 shows that 59% of Nebraska 3rd graders are proficient statewide. So we want to make sure to close that gap and underscore the importance of the early literacy effort across the state of Nebraska. And then to reach that goal, first we are working to increase the percentage of K through 3rd grade students to meet the benchmark on Nebraska Reading Improvement Act approved assessment. And this assessment help identify students who need additional help, and so we provide those support earlier. And the second sub goal, it's basically we're ensuring that 100% of Nebraska educator preparation programs are implemented evidence-based instructional grounded in science and reading. So therefore, we have those 5 tenets. The first one is to, as you look at it, is the professional learning. And what we did so far, we conducted statewide early literacy survey. We also established a literacy advisory panel, and we collaborate with other organizations like higher education, corporate funding sources to pilot those evaluation. Tenet 2, it's basically, as you see, is the curriculum and teacher preparation aligned to evidence-based reading instruction. So we collaborated with Nebraska Educator Preparation Program to ensure there's sustainability of teacher training evidence-based. And we coordinated an embedded literacy in NEMTSS initiative. The third one is basically for regional literacy coaches. We have collaborated with ESUs and developed a plan and hired and trained regional literacy coaches. Tenet 4, so far we are working on analyzing trend and report percentage of Nebraska K through 3rd grade student who meet the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act, analyze some NCompass proficiency data, and evaluate a pilot program. And the last one, which is our focus today on Tenet 5, which is Jesse and I, we're going to share more details in the next slides. Next slide, please. Let's go to the other one, Jesse. I don't need to share this. How about we share? Yes, Let's share that one. This is just a graph to show, to help illustrate how we plan to reach our goal by 2030. So as you see, is all these cards, they're targeting 70% of third grade proficiency by 2030. And those cards represent those 5 tenets, which we're going to talk more in details later. Jesse, if we can go to the logic model. Yes. So the blue one, the first one, logic model. Yes, thank you. So I don't know about you, but I'm a visual person. I want to see, okay, you talk about all these tenets, all these goals and all that. So put it together and okay, what you're gonna do, what are your input and what are the strategy and what are the expectation. So if you look at this, clearly define how our resources and action are expected to lead hopefully measurable outcome over time. If you look at our input include policy and statutes, which provide the legal and strategic framework for literacy. We also rely on state leadership and infrastructure to ensure coordinated directorate and oversight. Funding and resources, which we have from CLSD project. We provide tools, we have standards and framework, and of course the human capital, including the educators, literacy coaches, and district leaders. If we move from input to strategy, so Nebraska literacy focus on coordinated set of core action to drive implementation statewide. So this includes how we're going to sustain high quality professional learning, of course, grounded in science reading, strong data, monitoring, continuous improvement, work with the family literacy, and all these tools, and prioritize those assessments. So instead of having 5, 6 assessment, how we can align them all so we don't overwhelm the schools with many of those assessments. And of course, like as you look at the output, we wanted to see tangible results of all these strategies. And I'm not gonna read all these, but the output really reflect the concrete system and support that Nebraska we put together. Moving to the next slide.
I just want to jump in and let everyone know that you will all have access to these slides after the show as well. Yes. Jesse's already sent me the link, the PowerPoint, so don't worry about trying to write all this down yourself. You'll have all this resource and a handout as well to go along with it. So you'll have all of this information later.
Thank you, Krista. If you look at the short term, next slide, Jesse, we expect to see meaningful shift in educator knowledge. So in short term, like in 1-2 years, everything that we would like to see, like the meaningful shift in knowledge and practices. So teacher and leader develop stronger understanding in science and reading and how they apply those principles. The medium term and the outcome we were expected, there is implementation by deepen the instructional practice, become consistent. So in 3 to 4 years, that's our expectation. So what success looks like in 5 years. So we would like to see a student increase literacy proficiency in NCompass and ACT. We would like to see earlier identification and support for those students who struggle in reading, narrowing achievement gap across the students, and improve attendance linked to family engagement. For educators, we would like in 5 years to sustain expertise in evidence base and go and access to coaches, to tools, and to the network. For system, in general, literacy plan actively guide instruction and resources, strong data system, family and community partnership embedded in statewide. And of course, for NDE, so the CLSD investment, we're hoping yield sustain instructional improvement, and there will be clear alignment with the leadership initiatives and all that. Next slide is just for you. It just shows, this is the theory of action. It's just summarized. If NDE invested in this work, how that's going to impact the school district. If the school district invests in this work also, how that's going to, impact at the school level, the leaders at school level, how they impact the teachers, and teachers, of course, as you know, the classroom level, teacher bring literacy to life for students. And with the right training, materials, support teacher, use evidence-based, we're hoping that students, they benefit and improving reading skills. This is a lot for introduction, but Jessie emphasized, she said, we need to make sure that our audience understand why it's family literacy, and are we just focusing on family literacy or not. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessie. Jessie, take it from here.
All right, well, thank you. So thinking about what Zainab's overviewed for us, really we're focused now on the family literacy and the pre-K programs, because that's really going to help us get to that goal. And we know that the resources and support don't just live within a school or even in the families that support their students in the schools, but within the communities. And so thinking really intentionally about how libraries across the state can help support Tenet 5 and the work that's outlined that Zainab shared here. So a little over a year ago, we started a statewide advisory committee, and we had representation from the Nebraska Library Association on that advisory group. And that group really was tasked with identifying, sorry, I have to move this thing that was in my way. I can't see the slides. Was tasked with identifying gaps in family literacy across the state and really trying to bring together folks that had resources and tools that can support families really intentionally. We know that educators are working on the science of reading in school, but what does that really mean for our families and our community providers across the state that are working on literacy supports? And so we got a commitment from everyone that's on the statewide advisory committee, from their organization. We wanted them to contribute resources that support ECE and family literacy programs. And then we had them attend monthly meetings to share what they were doing around literacy and then new opportunities. This was also happening at the same time as there were a lot of funding changes at the federal level. And so things were kind of changing vastly across the state of Nebraska and the programs that our partners were implementing. And so we were trying to figure out long-term, how can we harness what we know will still be available for folks? And so what the goal of that work for over a year was to develop a family literacy implementation guide that highlights successful practices in family literacy across the state, really at a school level, but within the best practices, we really highlight how families are involved in that, or should be, and then how we're partnering with our community organizations and expertise that again can support literacy within their communities, and also reduce that duplication and try to improve alignment where we can. Some of our rural spaces, families have to drive fairly a long way, and so like just being creative and figuring out where are like virtual things that can be taken advantage of, or a certain library may have a different program that another neighboring community can take advantage of. So we really wanted to develop those partnerships. In particular, we've looked for local libraries to support families and caregivers. And especially as we think about summer reading programs, this is really where you all shine and do that work all summer long. Some of our school districts have summer school. Sometimes it's limited to certain students that need additional support. And so the rest of youth need opportunities to keep reading in the summer. And then we have created a digital platform that really compiles plug and play resources for families and community providers that work with families. So that can be our community action agencies, that can be community libraries, really summer programs, after school programs, anybody that supports family and child development can take advantage of those resources. So now we're in year 2, or what we call phase 2 of our Family Literacy Advisory Committee. And we are continuing to meet quarterly and sort of highlight how we can promote the resources that we have, as well the resources that we were created during that first year, as well as make sure that we're not missing out on any new opportunities that our partners are working on, and then trying to just identify ways to align our work, again, to reduce that duplication and get the word out as much as we can. And then these are all of our partners that are part of the statewide advisory committee, as well as parents, teachers, and community representatives from across the state. We really felt it was really important that we have a wide variety of representation from the state so that we can hear all voices and not just the ones that happen to show up. So we've kind of intentionally recruited statewide representation. This also fits in with our AQuest component, which is one of our accountability components. And so the AQuest element or tenet that we were most focused on is the positive partnerships, relationships, and success tenet. We know that our tenet 5 literacy work really focuses on, as does this tenet for AQuest, that the value of family and the collaborative nature that the community plays in advocating for student and educational opportunities and quality. We know that during the pandemic, sometimes families were not as welcomed into spaces in schools as much as they once were. And so we know schools are really trying to kind of get that back going and get families seeing themselves in schools, because it is that shared responsibility. Without family support, it's really a lot harder to support literacy and all other academic success. And making sure again we have culturally respectful partnerships, and that we're supporting families maybe in slightly different ways, and providing any accommodations that we can to make sure that all families have access. And that then helps to grow relationships, and hopefully is a continuous process over a student's life or a child's life within your community. It's not just something that they do when they're in pre-K or elementary school, but hopefully they're accessing those resources and supports throughout the time that they're in your community. And again, those supports, if they can be offered in multiple settings, we know that's great, because then children feel welcome and supported, as well as families in a given community. So here is an example of our website for the Nebraska Reads, our tenet 5 resources. So these are really focused again on being plug and play resources that families can utilize. So we've kind of broken them down into 4 sections. So resources specifically for families. So the wording says your child, in your home, things like that. It gives examples of how families can support their children in increasing their literacy. Then in that second section, the family literacy resources, there's really additional resources that show how parents can support their literacy skills. And so if they're also learning alongside their child, things they can do, resources they can access across the state. And then we are using the parent and children together time, so PAC time. This is a specific 4-component program, which I'll dive into just in a few more slides, that is developed by the National Centers for Families Learning, that really highlights the value of literacy across the household, and supporting that by having parents read books, modeling those behaviors, and then those in really intentional times where parents and children work together on literacy skills. And then our final component are really parent resources that schools can provide. So sometimes some of the wording within some of those resources talk about how educators can provide resources to families, but then there's also still those family tip sheets that are really supportive of just really simple tips families can implement once they get those resources home. And then this is just an example. Oh, Christina, are you going to have to play this video?
Yes. Yep, I can do that. Hold on a sec. I'm going to just pull presenter control to my screen. There it is. Okay. Do you want me to just hit play, or do you want to do a little intro of it?
Yeah, this is just it's a really short video, but it's great because it talks about how literacy skills go well beyond just, reading a book. And so if you have like, this is a YouTube video, if you have like a loop in your library that plays videos, this is one of those things you could add to your loop to have shown. And then we have resources that bring folks back to this, our Nebraska Reads resource page. We have some bookmarks and stuff that we would be happy to send out here in March to everyone for the National Reading Month. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Here are 3 tips for families to make reading a fun part of your daily routine. Read together for at least 20 minutes every day. Ask a teacher or librarian to help choose books that match your child's interests and reading level. Have your child practice reading aloud and sounding out new words by reading their own story time. When schools, teachers, and families work together, we can ensure all children have the reading skills they need to be successful for the rest of their education journey. Visit the Nebraska Reads website for more reading tips and resources.
So we were trying to make things really parent-friendly. Oh, there we go. So that they can see themselves directly involved in the work and don't have to translate it into understanding what they should do next. So we have our reading roadmap is one of the resources that kind of shows what is developmentally appropriate, how students get from one step to the next with the reading roadmap. And then we have our Ready for School resources, and those are available in multiple languages. And it highlights a lot of the resources that, again, it's not just reading. There's other developmental supports that help students be prepared for school and ready to learn. We have our Read at Home plan that helps support students. It's part of our legislation that helps supports parents, support students in really the kind of the nitty gritty and the science of reading, but at home. And so there's activities that parents can do with children side by side and make that a reality. Parents didn't go to school to be teachers, and certainly sometimes it's complicated to teach students reading skills, and so it's all mapped out within those resources. And then this is just an example of kind of what some of the materials look like. So we try to keep it lower text, make it colorful, and then also help define some of the things maybe that parents are seeing when they're getting information home from schools about fluency and how those diagnostic components that maybe puts their student below certain metrics, and sometimes that gets confusing too. So trying to demystify some of that information to keep parents not feeling disappointed, but help support their children in improving some of those skills. So we created some social media promotional materials. These also could be used in newsletters, and so we have the link when you get the slides. If you're interested in any of the resources, there the direct link is linked below in the slide to this particular social media promotional resource. So we have a variety of different, I think we have 5 posts that promote from different settings. So schools, this is a community organization. And then this links back to our resources on the NDE website that highlight what we just kind of showed you, so that we're trying to increase awareness of the resources and the supports that are available. And then we're also very open to adding content to that. So if there's anything that you feel like it's missing, we know that it's going to be an evergreen resource, and that we're going to keep adding content and tools as folks develop evidence-based practices across the state. And it really is meant for things that have a long life versus just events. We can share those in sort of a letter or a newsletter update sort of thing, but really, we want to be able to highlight Nebraska-grown resources that are going to be around for a while too. So if you have any of those, please let us know. The Family Literacy Guide or the Implementation Guide. This is developed in Canva. our canvas. And this is really, again, like Zainab mentioned, it's that really a tool to help schools assess family literacy capacity and identify what they're doing currently, and where they're maybe missing the mark on supporting families with literacy development. And then it also provides best practices for doing that. So again, it kind of gets into that 4-component literacy model, which I have one, I think it's maybe the next slide. And then it kind of helps with that self-assessment to determine those gaps and next steps. The sections of the module include an orientation, adult education. I think it's the orientation, the vision, a self-assessment, adult education, parent time, pack time, and then at the end, we're hoping that as folks complete this, that they can share success stories. So what they found to be effective in their schools and communities. We know that, again, not everything will work in every community, but if we can kind of figure out what region of the state those folks are in, we can share that really purposefully with other people as we, other people in those areas as we go out to ESUs and talk to the literacy coaches and or the schools that have intentionally selected family literacy as part of their statewide literacy grant funding. We're working with those folks that have that written in to make sure that they have the support they need to expand the family literacy component. So this is the 4-component model developed by the Nebraska, or no, not Nebraska, National Centers for Family Learning. And so really it is that adult education. Adults need to kind of know what they're doing and where they're going, then so they can support their children's education. Then there is that pack time, that parents and children together, they're learning together, they're doing activities. So again, it's beyond just reading books, but sometimes they're doing activities together and they're talking about what they're doing and the colors of the apples that they're you know, taste testing or whatever it may be, and then the parent time focus. Those are the 4 components of that national model, and so we're trying to use that as our evidence-based practice within that implementation guide. And then we partner really closely with our Nebraska sector of Nebraska National Centers for Family Learning, and they really house the statewide Family Community Engagement Center with the NDE and the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. And the goals of that organization or subgroup of that organization is really to have parent involvement. So myself and Brian Welch, who's the director of the National Center for Families Learning in Nebraska, we convene a quarterly group with parents. That the group's made at 51% of parents, so we can have parent feedback, and then professionals from across the state, and we identify needs and supports that they would like, and then we work with Objective 2, that training and technical assistance group, to identify resources, especially if there's Nebraska resources existing, and then we focus on those evidence-based programs if we can't find anything in Nebraska, and support those, as well as some literacy programs from NCFL that are being implemented at like a really high intensity model in places like O'Neill and Crete and Omaha. And I think we're looking for actually a few more communities to do some more literacy programs. So if you're really interested, I can connect you with Brian Welch. And then our 4th goal is to support policy changes, or really be, I guess, keep abreast of policy changes that affect family engagement, community involvement, and then family literacy, which are the 3 tenets of this work. So one of the things that we did this year that maybe would have touched all of you is in November for National Family Literacy Month, we sent mailers to 296 public libraries to highlight the resources that we had available at the time. And then we, with our family or our parent engagement group, that Objective 1 group, they promoted 6 events organized by 4 parents across the state to do a variety of literacy promotion activities with families. And then we were also able to have a official state proclamation day at the Capitol with the governor. And then we actually had Don Bacon, who's one of our representatives came as well, and so that was really great to be recognized and promote family literacy in that way as well. And then this is a really exciting resource that we are trying to share out really broadly across the state. It's not being utilized very well, and that Brian and I were problem solving, that people probably just are having a hard time wrapping their head around that it's really free. So this Nebraska Early Learning Resource materials, they're housed in Papillion, but they're free for families to check out and or libraries or community organizations to check out, and we will send them to you for free, and then we will also send you a postage paid envelope for you to return them, or box to send back to us. So you can live in Scottsbluff, it's fine. You can check out, there's game night resources, there's books and other family literacy supports, and there's a variety of things that you can check out, and we're trying to work with our family committee members to see what else might be missing, but just so that families don't have to, some of those board games are really expensive, so they don't have to go out and buy those. They can just utilize what we have, and then just return them when they're done. So
so library could reach out to have this, so you'd mail them to wherever their library is.
Yep. They can use this QR code or this bit.ly address right on here. And like if you're hosting a family night, or not, it doesn't even have to be a family night. If you're hosting like an event at your library where you think these resources would be of benefit, then yeah, anyone can check them out. And yes, so.
Nice.
And then we are hosting our National Reading Month in collaboration with our statewide advisory committee. So we're highlighting many of the resources that we collected through that work. And so this again is the National Education Association. This is their event, but we're promoting it in Nebraska, so through National Reading Month. And really the month focuses a little bit more on reading aloud with youth. And so that's the kind of the focus, but obviously any kind of reading is great. And so we have resources in this toolkit. This is just, I'm showing you just a snip of the cover sheet for the toolkit. And that QR code there is the same as the one that I have on in the middle of the screen. But that takes you directly to this Canvas toolkit. And you can download the resources that are on there. They're all live links. And so some of them are plug and play for families. There's like a family sheet. There's ones for organizations. So we try to break it out so that depending on where you're situated, it makes the most sense for you. And then we also have a reading bingo on the last 2 pages of the resource or the toolkit, so that you can support that. I mean, because sometimes it's hard to think about how you just say reading more bucks doesn't necessarily get it. So you can do any kind of a promotion in your own space that would help students read more books for whatever kind of like either opportunity or prize that your organization would have. And then we would like to know if you're doing anything in your space for National Reading Month in March. And if you are, I have this on, this will be out on the handout, or this is linked on the handout that will be sent out afterward. It's like a success form. Let us know what you're doing and we'll enter you into a drawing to win supports and resources for a book garden. So book gardens are, many of you are familiar with this, but for anybody that's not, they're really a way to allow youth to pick their own books instead of you just saying, like my pediatrician's office would be like, here's the 2 books you get. And we, like my kids didn't get to pick them. But we know that the research says that when youth are able to select their own books, they're more invested in reading them. So the book garden gives students that opportunity. So we would send you instructions and some books to do a book garden from a drawing that we do out of National Reading Month. People that enter in their success stories, and then our statewide advisory group will also highlight those success stories as well. Across the state. So if you are planning on doing something, or you are, let us know how that goes. And then our Office of Early Childhood Education for Step Up to Quality, obviously literacy is a key component of the Step Up to Quality program, but they actually have a podcast that's also I thought a nice resource in particular as we're getting prepared for Literacy Month, but how early literacy and family engagement can support those everyday interactions, again, not necessarily with books. And so this is a pre-recorded podcast. The link in this slide is to a YouTube video as well, so you can listen to it whenever you want, but it's another great resource from the NDE to share or, again, highlight in your space if you highlight a variety of organizations or resources. And then, again, this is linked in the slides, but this is our Harvest of the Month, our early care and education lessons. The resources really are kind of focused on youth 3 through 6, but given some of the post-pandemic challenges that we know we have with literacy and learning, really it's probably appropriate. It's pretty appropriate through like age 8. So you could use these in a variety of, like, if you have these for summer programs, but each of the curriculum have on like the 3rd or 4th page some suggested books for reading.
Nice.
As well as, oh, go ahead.
No, I just said nice.
Oh, okay.
I like the connection there, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also they give you tips for how to involve families. And then, as you probably already know too, so for any particular book, if you wanted to host a read aloud, you can go to YouTube and type My Family's Corn Farm Read Aloud, and there's probably already one out there. So sometimes we link those within the curriculum or the lessons, but sometimes we don't. So if you wanted to do a What's for Lunch and you can't find that in the curriculum, you can just Google that on YouTube, or not, search that on YouTube, and you'll be able to find a read aloud, so that you don't have to do that, especially in places that have like low numbers of staff. You know, you could have someone else read it, find one that's good, have someone else read it while you're sort of interacting with families. And I've been to lots of places where, I think that's my next slide. Yes, the libraries do such an amazing job of setting up, I guess, like a book display, for lack of a better word. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but so you pick a theme for the month or 2 months period, and then like all the books on top of all the shelves are all highlighting. So March is also National Nutrition Month, so highlighting nutrition or agriculture. And so we have, in particular, these book lists and bulletin board resources that highlight nutrition or agriculture if you wanted to do a book display in your space. And you could use them for March or October, because October is National Farm to School Month, and so it could work for either time. And so these are all linked in this slide. And then also the books, hold on. The Literacy Central has a lot of really great resources as well. So I just also included this resource, Books on the Menu, they're called. So this is kind of focused on nutrition or food. And then they have a guide for educators to use. So if you want to do something at your library, also this would be like, this is the parent handout, the complimentary parent handout that you could then send to home as well. And let us, how are we doing on time? All right, so then our last set of resources are kind of a through line, so that they're not specifically focused on literacy per se, but they're really focused on the larger family community engagement. In 2023, we created a family community engagement framework that we had that really was focused for professionals, so community library staff, for school staff, for educators, really highlighting the importance again of family community engagement and how that really complements educational supports for youth, and the value of that. And so we have 7 videos. So there's an intro video, and then there's 6 additional videos that are all about different ways to interact and support family engagement. And they're all 3 to 5 minutes long, and they have some discussion questions linked in under the YouTube, like in the comments section, so that you could use really for staff meetings. Again, sometimes I think if you haven't dealt with families as much, or if you have new staff that haven't done that, sometimes it's really important to kind of explain like how to make them feel welcome and supported in your space, because they don't always feel that. And so then they're not as likely to utilize your spaces if they don't feel welcome and supported. And then also just key strategies that you would hear in the videos that other folks across the state have used that were effective for them. And so they just kind of support that long-term collaboration and success for youth. And then we also have a family version of the framework. So we have 4 tip sheets, and they help families understand how to navigate the school system. So sometimes that's kind of scary right away, especially if you have a student with special needs or you're moving from another state or another community. Best practices for communicating with schools, how to advocate for your student, and then again, that being more involved. I know a lot of schools are started opening the doors back up and trying to see how they can get parents more involved, but this gives some really like structured ways that schools like to be partnered with, so that are supportive of the ways that schools work with families, and hopefully families can then feel like they can be more involved. And then this is the second video.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. I've got this one ready to go. So there it is. Okay. Should I just play?
Yep.
All right.
Welcome to the Family and Community Engagement Micro-Learning on Community Partnership and Support Services. The best community partnerships are local. Partnerships should build programs catered to the unique strengths and needs of each community. Each school or child care provider should evaluate their community and determine where outreach to specific potential partners would be valuable. Community partnerships should be mutually beneficial, collaborative in nature, and result in achieving the identified goals of those involved. This microlearning will focus on not-for-profit partners such as government organizations, nonprofit organizations, faith-based groups, and other such organizations.
A really important part of being in a nonprofit is partnerships. You've got to have partnerships, and you've got to be able to lean on your community partners. If we work in silos, then we don't have the same impact. We have to come together. We want to make sure that we're being good stewards of those resources, even if they're not ours. With our school-based health centers, we share the cost with the school. The school will allow us to be in that space, and we'll bring in the equipment, we'll bring in the supplies, and then we'll run the clinic. And that helps us stay sustainable. It's not about competition. It's about how do we use both of our resources to fill a gap.
Identifying the desired outcomes of a potential partnership and seeking an organization that can address those goals collaboratively will help schools and child care providers support success for all learners. Additionally, community organizations can bring their own varied perspective to consider all needs of a community. This collaborative approach that uses multiple perspectives can help identify and remove barriers for families. Community partnerships can help identify and close resource gaps in the school. When thinking about new partnerships, gather data and information to identify needs and gaps that could be addressed to help the students and families served. One way to do this is to conduct a needs assessment to identify strengths and challenges in goal areas such as academic learning, family engagement and support, social services, and other areas of need. A tool most schools already use is the Comprehensive Needs Assessment. It focuses on quality, evidence-based education practices for student success. Once you've determined your areas of needs, you can start reaching out to community partners with a clear vision of what you'd like to accomplish. Make sure to coordinate efforts in your school and district in order to not overwhelm community partners with multiple requests. This can have the added benefit of aligning similar efforts within the school system.
Myself and my social worker worked really hard to be able to create a partnership with the diaper bank. We're able to get diapers from them to support all of our center-based families and all of our home-based families on a regular basis. It's been huge for our families to not have to think about that one more thing. Allows them the opportunity to be able to use some of the funds that they have for some of those other basic needs. Advice for anyone out there that's really trying to find partnerships: share more about what you're doing in your learning environment and reach out to those that may be able to share their resources.
Collaboration and partnership is truly important. There's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. We can't do it all by ourselves. There's not one school that can do it all by themselves. As a parent, I can't do it all by myself. Partnerships help push the needle in terms of student success. I think it's just a matter of becoming involved and just going to the proper people and saying, hey, you know, there's a partnership that I think really would impact the students at this school.
To continue the discussion about family and community engagement, visit the Nebraska Department of Education Family and Community Engagement webpage to view other videos in the microlearning series or explore the Nebraska School Family and Community Engagement Framework. Empowering educators and families through active engagement leads to a stronger, more supportive educational system for all learners.
Thank you. Yeah, so really this video was great in that if you see an opportunity, you think sometimes our schools are used to working with the partners they've always worked with. If you feel like you have something to add, they might not realize you have a certain resource. Just because you asked 5 years ago, there's a lot of staff turnover in a building. So ask again, you never know. People are in different places of readiness. 5 years ago, schools had a ton of extra money that they had to use. They are not in that boat anymore. With the kind of the pandemic dollars have all been spent. And so just reach out to your schools, especially this is a perfect time here. Schools are thinking about summer programming and even getting ready for next year. So yeah.
I can see here it's popping. This has got popping up with the next video in the series too. I see.
Yeah, we have it set on the loop, so you get to see all of them. But yeah,
start with this one. You'll have that. It'll lead you into the other ones too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So if there, I don't know if there's any questions. I know we're at time, but
yep, that's okay. I just did hit a presenter control back to you. I think you had that final slide with your info. If you want to get that up on the screen.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, this is really just. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. So many things.
Go ahead.
All right, there it is, slideshow. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, I guess we're really wanting to know how do you see these resources supporting your work in the community space? If you're not a school library staff, what additional resources and supports would you like? And what support could we offer to you in the future? So those are kind of our questions.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah, please use the questions section in your GoToWebinar interface. Type in there. We did start a little late, so we will let people ask questions. We'll stick around as long as you all have something you want to ask in the audience there. We do record the show, so if you do need to leave because you only allotted an hour, that's okay. You'll be able to come back and watch it on the recording. We do have someone who did ask a question. You want to know more about the book gardens. How are you defining a book garden? If you can explain a little bit about that,
sure.
And, why that is something to promote.
Well, again, it's sort of that merging of National Nutrition Month and the concept of a book garden is not at all really nutrition or ag based. It's really that whole letting students pick their own book. Like that's the concept of a book garden.
Like picking flowers or vegetables.
Yep, they get to pick their own, they get to choose or select their own books. And so typically what it is, it's set up in a library out that like at a bunch of different round tables are set up. And so they would have like the ones that I've seen like at the national conference I went to in the fall, they had them like broken up by like reading level. And so the tables are set up by reading level. And then you can do a theme if you want. Like I know one school that presented, they did like a be a reading hero theme. And so they had different superhero books or just anything that had to do with being a hero in any way, shape or form. And then they had them separated by reading levels across the tables, and like the librarian dressed up with a cape on. That was really fun. And I would say the other benefit or the other like, I guess best practice is they let families know like 2 weeks in advance. They put stuff out on social media. They put flyers up in their space. Then they sent out like with their listserv or their contact group. They let them know they were doing this multiple times, and then they also told partners they were doing this. So like childcare centers or childcare homes that they were going to do this book garden, and then they could bring their kiddos over and they could bring out pick out a book. So they did a lot of kind of pre-promotion, and then they also had a resource about how to support your child, how to support literacy, how to read aloud. Some of those resources that also went home with the kids. They got like a bag, and then the books were in there, and then sort of that again, those parent level supports, the plug and play where they can sit down and you know, kind of those guiding questions like ask the names of the characters, what happened at the beginning, middle, end, those sorts of things. So that's a book garden in a nutshell. We're merging the book garden with family or the Read Across America month because it's also nutrition month, and so we're gonna get like whoever wins the book garden resources, the books they are nutrition and ag related, just because those are the ones that align with some of our other lessons and resources.
Right. Great, sounds good. Yeah, I've heard about book gardens, that concept before, and in relation to also areas that are book deserts, which if you can look up information about this as well. It's similar to like food deserts where there's areas that do not have a public library or a bookstore or somewhere for people to easily get books. The same concept with food. There's places that are, you know, don't have a grocery store, don't have somewhere to get that, and trying to get into those areas with bringing the library there, doing little free libraries in areas that don't have a public library, that kind of thing. And it's a great, you know, we need to get into the places, I think, where there's not an easily accessible library, bookstore, school, the library to go into when you want to.
Yes, and I did include the little free library from your website in our Read Across America, our National Reading Month resources, because I put the little map of where they're located.
Yes, yes, we did grants last year to same thing, kind of help with literacy in areas that do not have libraries specifically. We do have, like you said, almost over 200 something libraries in the state, but there are still so many. You think that's a lot, but there's still so many areas that are not close to any of those public libraries. So we did a grant last year to help get some communities that do not have a public library have a little free library, and now there's someone there who is maintaining that and keeping it up for their community. I think it's been very successful. I don't know, we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions? Any other last minute desperate things you want to ask? I think this is great. You said this was a session that you all did at our Nebraska Library Association conference this past fall, and it was recommended that you bring it here on NCompass Live and spread the word even more to our libraries in the state. So I think this is great. Definitely gonna get helping out with more promoting the early learning library and the National Reading Month Toolkit, those kind of things that our libraries should be getting the word out about for this. So I don't see any other desperate last minute questions, so I think we will wrap things up for everyone. I guess this is great information, and I think so often things that are like focused on educators, Nebraska Department of Education and teachers or school librarians, public libraries don't catch on to those as much as I think they should. There's a lot of things that we should be doing together, and we're both on the same page. We want everyone to be, kids to have literacy, to be able to read and know what they're doing, and that's something that both sides should work together. And I think this is something great that hopefully more of our libraries will start reaching out to you all to
reach out to the schools in your spaces and see if they'd be interested in or at least just sharing the information you have about your summer reading programs or what you're doing in your space, because sometimes schools forget to reach out and think about what other people can do to support their work. So thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna bring presenter control back to my screen again.
Thank you, and sorry, it's not, we're over time.
It's okay, we're only a little bit. We always do, we're over time most of the time we do the show, but that's okay. Happy to get whatever time is needed to get all this information out. And like I said, it's always recorded, so people can watch later when they do have more time to watch the entire recording. So thank you so much, Jesse and Zainab. This is great information, as I said, and hopefully you'll get a lot of contact from our libraries after this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So thank you everybody for being here today. I'm going to do my wrap up here as I always do. Today's show has been recorded, as it always is. And if you use whatever is your search engine of choice and type in NCompass Live, the name of our show, you'll find our main page, which here we have our upcoming shows. But we also have an archive page, a link right here. Most recent sessions go at the top of the page. So today's show will be here by the end of the day tomorrow. It should be up and posted as long as GoToWebinar and YouTube cooperate with me. Everyone who attended today's show and registered for today's show will get an email from me letting you know when the recording is available and ready. As I said, I do have a link to the slides as well and a handout that Jesse passed on to me. So on your archive page, we'll have a link to the show recording, a link to the slides, a link to handout, so you'll have access to all of that as well. We do have a Facebook page, social media page for NCompass Live. So if you like to use Facebook, give us a like over there. We post reminders about the show. Here's a reminder to log into today's show, introducing our presenters, and when the recording is ready, I post here as well. So look here for that notice to come out sometime tomorrow. All right. So that is for this week's show. Something else I just want to remind everyone about is I hope you join us for next week's show. Next week, we're talking about working with your library board here on NCompass Live, communicating your library's value and getting your board on board to help. Jessica Chamberlain is the library director at our Norfolk, Nebraska Public Libraries to talk about that. So if you do deal with your library boards and how you want to know a little, tips and tricks on how to work with them, please do sign up for register for that show and any of our other upcoming shows. I've got March dates coming in here, so keep an eye on the calendar for more dates to come in. And one last thing I want to remind everyone about is Big Talk from Small Libraries. Big Talk from Small Libraries is an annual conference that we run here from the Nebraska Library Commission, which is co-sponsored by the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, and is always the last Friday of the month. All of our presenters are from libraries who have a population served or an FTE, full-time enrollment, if they are academic or K-12, of 10,000 or less. So this is all the smallest libraries out there presenting about cool things they're doing. The schedule is up, registration is open, has been open. So please do check out the schedule and see what kind of topics and what kind of presenters we have coming up at the end of this month. And do go over to the registration page and sign up to join us on the day of, it is Friday, February 27th, the full day of sessions we have. We have hour-long sessions and noontime 10-minute lightning round sessions. But if you're unable to join us for the whole day, that's fine. The entire day is recorded, as our previous ones are, and you will be able to access the conference recordings. Each one will be an individual session recording to watch them later at your convenience. So sign up for Big Talk, sign up for future NCompass Lives. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hopefully we'll see you all on a future episode of NCompass Live. Bye-bye.